I know Netflix reported, and we can put that aside, but I just wonder, when we look at Netflix and the kind of numbers that it posted and the fact that it's kind of in transition to a more advertising-driven business model, how much of it is really a media company versus a tech company at this point?
Well, right now, I think it's primarily media, but the advertising is going to kind of take it back to its roots, which is much more of an advertising company. I think what's not well understood is Netflix is adding, essentially ad-supported customers at a significantly faster rate than they're monetizing them. And that's creating a huge revenue backlog, similar to the password sharing backlog. And I think in 2 to 3 years, you're going to see that backlog turn into revenue. And I think they have the potential to become like the first $1 trillion stock in media, and so it's breathtaking in terms of the growth and their value stock at the same time.
As someone who runs an ad software company, how much visibility do advertisers have from Netflix? They're not disclosing things like the number of subscribers they have on their ad-supported tier, whereas Amazon, for the most part, that right off the bat, because it's the number of Prime subscribers, and they've moved everyone into the ad tier unless you upgrade out of the ad tier.
Yeah, I'm not sure advertisers really care that much. There's a transition occurring very rapidly from linear to streaming. And while that's occurring, essentially the streaming is becoming much more audience centric, meaning, who's watching the service, what kind of qualities they have. The advertisers are targeting those qualities and not just targeting the overall audience. And so I don't know any advertisers that are particularly, kind of concerned about the exact number of subscribers. I don't think it's an issue.
I am curious just about the mechanics when we talk about just how much advertising has proliferated beyond the more traditional areas. Obviously, Netflix has found a way to do this, or is trying to find a way to get its platform up and running. You obviously see a lot of potential for success there. But when we talk about Amazon's push into it, I'm talking like on its retail side, not necessarily on its streaming side, and other companies that have really started to experiment with this, social media companies that have really decided that, look, we've got a lot of eyeballs. How do we leverage them? Is there a sort of a critical mass, a point where you just reach a level where it's just too much, or is there enough opportunity out there, Mark, for everyone?
Well, I think there's a lot of opportunity, but the table stakes is you have to have an audience that cares about your content. And so if you're a media network and you don't have some specific reason like ESPN and sports or Netflix and comedy and documentaries and their other content to go and see them, you're going to suffer. If you have those, then like you're saying, then it's a matter of how well can we monetize that. Advertising is just a start of monetization. I think you're going to see, shopping directly off shows and things like that coming in the future. It's still a few years out, but the biggest streamers are going to or you're going to see them go beyond advertising itself. So it's it's kind of a big transition period we're in right now.
I'm going to ask you also, it's very much a layman's question, so don't jump it down my throat. But when we talk about building out these platforms, I mean, when you think of advertising in the old school sense, it was very cyclical. It had its ups and downs, and that created a lot of angst for investors, at least in publicly traded companies. How do these platforms today manage to smooth that out, to make sure that that advertising revenue and that business is a little bit more consistent on a month-to-month, year-to-year basis?
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. You have to add more customers. Most of the big streaming networks with ad-supported platforms are essentially very dependent on just 1,000 large brands. And those brands don't generally increase their budgets at all, but they decrease them very quickly in any kind of economic downturn. So the way to counter that, I mean, it's essentially what Mountain does, is bring small and mid-sized advertisers into this market and really spread, essentially spread your revenue across not just the head of that tail, but across the long tail. And the companies that do that successfully, we're partnering with a lot of them. Mountain is, they're going to thrive, and the ones that don't, they're going to have problems, going forward. And so that's what's actually happening right now.
Mark, what are you thinking advertising revenue will look like for the likes of Alphabet, Meta, even Snap for the third quarter? The third quarter, of course, you have a period where there's a lot of people advertising with political campaign ads, and that, I know on the broadcast side, that tends to result in a lot of revenue. Does that translate into more revenue on the technology side?
Not really. I mean, like Mountain, we consider ourselves more on the tech side. We don't take political ads at all. I think that's for the most part true with most of the social platforms. So I don't think, and they also, it's a blip for them. I mean, Meta is over 100 billion in revenue, Google over 200 billion. So it's not a significant part of their revenue. The streaming, I'm sorry, the linear networks rely on it a lot more. Also, from talking to a lot of those political agencies, they're just very focused on kind of old school, linear local advertising, and they haven't adapted as quickly to digital targeted advertising as you would expect. Maybe the next election cycle they will.
The next election cycle. Give us a sense here, Mark, longer term here. I mean, we'll get past the election cycle, get into next year here. Are we going to see a little bit more of a shift in advertising, meaning is it possible we can see a sort of a new player bubble up in terms of grabbing those ad dollars away from the more traditional, or I should say at least the more dominant tech companies out there right now?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. I think you will see a shift. What's going to happen is all of the streaming networks, and I talked to a lot of them, they are very, very focused. I mean, like the Disneys of the world and Peacocks and things like that, Warner Brothers, they are very focused on this like full shift from linear TV to streaming. And as part of that shift, I think they're becoming much more competitive with Google and Meta and TikTok. And so you're going to start to see them really take a bigger share of pie. They've always been very focused on what they charge, which is referred to as CPM. Now they're starting to get more focused on share of wallet, how much of the marketing goes to them, which is traditionally only Meta and Google very much focused on. But now all in the networks understand share of wallet is really important.